Welcome back to episode 228 of the Tall Boy Radio Podcast. And as we always say, who knows where it goes when the beer flows? Well, I can tell you this much. We ain't in the garden. We're not chancing cables in puddles. We ain't that daft, despite what people say about us. So without further ado, let's say hello to the other host who's made it tonight. Gaza, how are you doing?
Yeah, evening all, evening the world. Really good. Busy couple of days at work after having a relatively sort of stress-free week, being away for half term, and I'm sure that at some point we'll get into my travels and this, that, and the other. But yeah, looking forward to this, and it's always fantastic when we have guests on, and it doesn't take a genius if you're watching us on the live stream to realise that we do have a guest on. So I'll pass back to Adam, who can lead us into where this episode is going to go.
Indeed. Biggie, he's back.
I'm back. Yes, I'm back again. They paid me a lot of money to come back. I enjoy it. I'm glad to be back, and it's emotional. So, yeah,
it always is with us.
And I get free beers. It's the only time to get away the house. I get some free beers. So, yeah, I thought, why not?
Nice one. It's good to have you back. Now we're going to do something a little bit different. Last time we talked about his appearances on Channel 5, his business, and all the kind of food that he produces. We'll probably touch on that a little bit. Don't you worry about that. But we're going to be looking a little bit at politics tonight and what it's like running a small business in this climate, and how we can effectively affect that, if you believe that, with the election coming up. But we'll get into that a little bit. But before I do, I just want to give a quick shout out for an event that's happening in Middlewich if you're there this Saturday. So the bridal party. So Liam, who guested on the podcast, as you probably know, we've mentioned a few times, sadly passed away. Well, there is a charity set up in his honour, and there's a few musical events being put on. You'll be able to enjoy, I believe, a pint of the 2 meter rat, which was the beer that was made in his honour, because he was 2 meters tall. He was 6'6", the only guest we've ever had on who's bigger than me and Andy. God bless him. So yeah, if you are there, get yourself down to the White Bear Pub on Wheelock Street in Middlewich this weekend, and enjoy a beer, and maybe pick up one of these t-shirts as well, and make some money for him, and in his name. That'd be fantastic. But Biggie, how is business going?
Business is good. Business is really good, thriving and stuff. But some days we get when it's a bit quiet and stuff, but we get it. People need to eat, especially when it's good food. So why not?
That's it. And now, last time we had you on, I hadn't actually eaten there. I have put that right. I've been in a couple of times.
You did, and I saw you as well. You came in, and you had a big smile on his face. You needed a bib, though. I know that.
Gaz knows his stories too, now.
Absolutely.
So, how was the experience?
It was phenomenal. It was phenomenal. So, the first time I went in, I took my daughter in with me. No, it wasn't. That was the second time. So I took her in with me, and she said that it was the best chips and burgers she has ever had in her life.
That's great. That's why I get that from all the young people as well. I get the parents when I meet them. I'm shopping in Asda. My child comes to you, all his money comes to your place. And I'm like, brilliant, good.
Keep it coming.
I need the gas and the electricity on. Do you know what I mean? Please come through.
Well, it's interesting because so I regular listeners to the podcast will know, I've got a couple of daughters, and one's just sort of headed off to university. She's back now for the summer. Don't get me started about while we're paying for like houses and rent and this, that, and the other. When she's back for 5 months of the year, but anyway, absolutely. But no, honestly, both of those, they were like, oh, you got Mr Bigz? Like, yeah, we got Mr Bigz. Oh, his food's really good, and they've been in there loads of times, and they're like, can you say hello? I was like, yeah, I'll say hello to him. So, but yeah, both my daughters are like big fans of your food. They've been there loads of times, and they've said honestly they've never had a bad and never had a rope one. So yeah, really, really good, really tasty. So yeah, they just wanted to say like big shout out to you and say hi. So you know what, I've said that now. So there you go.
Next time, don't worry on your birthdays. Daddy's going to come and bring you.
Don't think I said that.
All on him, all the cakes and everything and all that. So you're right.
he got a problem with his hearing? I don't think I ever said that.
I said my father's here tonight. Daughters. Oh, goodness.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, amen to that.
There's
Amen.
daughters, it's always like, just feed him to the wolves. He's okay. He's all right. You know what I mean? But the daughters is, I understand that
two
very
daughters.
well.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Have you survived?
we know how that ends.
Have you survived 2 daughters? Have you survived?
You know what? It's weird because I've said this before on previous podcasts. I think, like, as a dad, I think if you stand a dad up against a wall and put a gun to his head and say, "Do you want a son or a daughter?"
Yeah.
I think most people say sons.
Yeah.
But actually, so Amy is male. She was born, and it's like, oh my god, mate, I've got a little girl, and then we fall pregnant again, and then it's like, well, do you want a boy this time? It's like, no, actually, it genuinely like really doesn't bother me, and I've never ever felt as though I've missed out. Loads of people go, oh, they don't play football. Honestly, my girls have done everything they've ever wanted to do. They've danced, they've sang, they've done loads of things, and never ever felt as though I've missed out on the experience of having 2 lads that you can go and kick a football around with. So I wouldn't change it for the world, and they're amazing girls, and I'll embarrass them if they are listening and stuff. But you know what I mean. But yeah, I wouldn't change it for the world, pal. Honestly, really wouldn't.
It's amazing. And you know what? Because I've got my friends who or 2 friends, in fact 3 friends, and they've all got daughters, 2 daughters. So they've been blessed with all daughters, and they always say, listen, like I know I want a son and all that, but the feeling you get from a daughter is like it's a different feeling, it's a different vibe. And I've also got a friend who had 2 sons beforehand, and then he had a daughter, and he said, listen, my boys are my boys, but when my daughter was born, I wound up.
Yeah,
he says it's an overwhelming experience, an overwhelming feeling.
Look, when you have kids, it's an amazing experience when you have kids, and your whole outlook and philosophy on life just completely changes in that instant, sort of thing. But like genuinely, never ever at any point felt as though he'd have missed out on stuff that they've done, or the sporting element. They're dead sporty. They were dead sporty growing up. They've done loads of stuff. So look, me and my wife were really lucky. They've grown up into amazing sort of kids and stuff. So dead lucky.
And as a person, man, there's a question for both of you, because you're both fathers now. So I'm yet to experience that sort of a feeling. But like in the world we're living in right now, in the modern world, are you fearful, or have you got hope for the future, for their future?
Well, I'll go first.
Well, that's a deep question, but you crack on, kid.
It is a deep question, and it's funny enough. So you probably say, so my kids are 7 and 5. I'm 51 next month. Okay, so I left it quite late. Yeah, it helps. My wife's a little bit younger than me, but it was a genuine conversation that I had with Kim when I said, I am not 100% convinced that I'm happy bringing children into this world. I'm not. I don't like the way it's going.
That's what I'm scared of as well.
Yeah.
It's like I'm like, I spoke to my partner and I was like, I'm scared. Like to bring. She agreed as well. Like, it's a we're in a scary place at the moment. Humanity as a whole.
Yeah, I think we're at that. I say tipping point. That might be, but we're at that. It can go so one or two ways. The way that we would like it to go, where everybody grows up and is amazing, but there's a tipping point in which case society could go the other way, and actually it's a very dangerous world. It's a very dark world, and this, that, and the other. And I remember you saying to me, you're like genuinely like, fatherhood. Is it right? Should we do it? Is it the right thing? Or am I ready? Will my kids be ready? What will the world be like when my kids are born and when they grow up? And what will it be like when they're 10 and then when they're 20 and when they're 30? Because you think of, parenting as, when up to the age of 18, they'll always be my kids. Yeah. When they're, when they're 30 and I'm 60 or whatever, you know what I mean? They'll always be my kids. Yeah. So you have to think about the longevity of that, and you think about, do I, and obviously, we have, but do you want to bring a child into this world whereby actually the future is a bit uncertain, or the future isn't known, etc., etc.? Now, we made the decision we did, and touch wood, I say my girls are gold, and the world that we live in currently, and the society we live in currently is great, depending on different.
Is it great though? Well, is it though? Like,
It depends on your outlook, doesn't it? It depends on what you're measuring great against. So what's your yardstick? And this is where people talk, and we might get on to the topic of the conversation, this podcast, in terms of this politics and stuff. It depends. Everything is a continuum, isn't it? And you've got on this side absolutely in rank bad and the worst you can possibly imagine, and over this side you've got amazing and utopia.
Yeah.
And we always exist on somewhere on that continuum.
Yeah.
And it's the same, I suppose, with politics or religion or society or whatever. You're always on that continuum somewhere. So wherever you are, there's always it's what you use as a reference point.
Yeah.
Are we in a society that is the society that my dad or granddad grew up in? No. Will we be in a society? Are we in a society now that my grandkids or great grandkids will grow up in? No, because everything is constantly changing. So I suppose my philosophy, my outtake on it is, it sort of depends on what yardstick you're using to measure. Is it a great society? No, probably not. But is it a great society measured against a society where everybody went and did manual labor and everybody did this and everybody did that? Well, it depends on your outlook. And some people will say that was amazing for us as our youth. And we're talking about like conscription now and, national service and all that. And if, Rishi gets his own way, then everybody will have national service.
Yeah.
Well, was that, and I'm not saying it is or it isn't, by the way, I'm sitting on a fence. Was that such a bad thing in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s when people did that? Don't know. Would it be right for society today? Don't know. Some people will say yes. Some people will say no. So I suppose for me, it depends on what you're using to measure your yardstick against, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I take your point. Are we in a great society? Arguably not. But some people would say arguably so.
Yeah.
My concern is, when you talk about continuums, you talk about life, it's difficult to see beyond our own four walls. I know how life affects me. Is my life is okay. I'm quite happy with it. I'm not going to moan about it. But I am very, very aware that there are large portions of society who are struggling to put food on the table, who this winter were making decisions as to whether they had the heating on or whether they ate that week. You know what I mean? There's the real risk out there.
But is that down to the leadership that we've got?
It's part of it. Yeah, it's part of it.
I think it's part of it. I do think that, you go back to the winter discontent, which isn't this year and last year, but you go back 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years, however long you go back.
Yeah.
There would always be people that will say, I'm struggling to put food on the table. I'm struggling to do this. So again, it goes back to that. What are you measuring it against? Now, if you've got points of reference and you're always measuring against that, then yes, you have a point of reference. You can say we're better or worse than them.
Yeah.
But the fact that society is so fluid, if that's even the right phrase, it's hard to get a point of reference. Is what was it like 20, 30 years ago? Because you speak to, you speak to your dad and you speak to your granddads and great granddads, and they'll say, oh, it was terrible when we were growing up. We had to do this and we had to do this. Well, actually, that doesn't actually sound that bad now.
Yeah.
So your point of reference is that, but actually you think, God, with my mind, you know what? Send all the little fuckers off to go and join the army or whatever. And do you know what I mean? And actually, that doesn't sound so. I'm not saying I agree with that, by the way.
No.
Yeah.
But that doesn't sound so bad to some people.
Yeah, it's like Socrates said it before. Like society goes through three phases. So if you're talking about our grandparents, well, for me, it would be my grandparents. When during the war, World War II, 1944, and such, England was at a point. Like, may I say as well, because I'm a geek on history. I love history. Now, I think the greatest history in Britain at the time was World War II, because things were really, really rough and tough. You understand what I'm saying? Like, we had the German, you had the heirs, bombed, and England actually stuck together and fenced off this imperial, like, big German war. People were coming in, and you scared them off. You scared them off. Now, at the time when the war ended, things were tough, things were rough, and you had to make do. They had to do what they had to do. Like my granddad would tell me when he's 16, when he left school, he had to go into, you had to learn, every boy had to learn some carpentry or some skill or anything like that.
Like go into a trade.
Go into a trade.
Yeah.
They teach you. So at that time, they knew that they had to work hard for their kids to live a better world. And that's the first phase. And then you got the second phase, which is our parents, which enjoyed the hard work from the previous generation. The success when you look at the 70s, the 50s, 60s, and the 70s, how people were wearing suits, good cars, manufacturers, and then they had the 80s where the label was giving out money and all that, right? So then leads us to my generation where we were born in the 80s and the 90s and stuff. We got given everything what we wanted because previously, they were living with our grandparents. Grandparents, they were more tighter with their money because they knew what it was like during the war. We don't know what's next, what we're going to ration, this, and that.
Yeah.
So the parents didn't get what they needed to get. They had to work harder for what they wanted to get. So they didn't want that for their parents, for their kids. So if we wanted a game, a PlayStation or whatever, it was easy to, we could get it. This and that, the latest fashion. So now my generation is having kids. We've got a generation of kids where, okay, I want to get something. Yeah, you can get it. Or you want to PlayStation the next game. Yeah, I see parents frantically panicking to get presents for these kids. Do you know what I mean? And then Christmas is a perfect example. Where people panic, they will go credit cards, banks, they love the people during Christmas time because people get so frustrated because they want to get the kids, they need to get this, they need to get that, they need to get this. So these kids don't know the value of money or the value of working and all that. So you're getting a generation of kids which is
it's easy for them.
It's easy. It's very easy.
You ask for something, you get it.
You get it. We're living in a time. I call it. We're living in a time right now. Humanity is living in a time of gluttony. You can get anything you want. You don't need to go on hunt for a piece of meat. You can go to Asda, Sainsbury's. You can order. I can remember when I was growing up, to go to KFC was a treat.
Yeah.
To go to McDonald's was a treat.
Yeah.
You can sit right here, right now. One of our kids or one of our whatever, they can just go on the phone. And
Delivery, there you go. Other food are available. Mr Bigz food. Yeah, they are. Yeah. Delivery, they are available. Yeah, absolutely.
You don't have to go like our forefathers and ancestors to go out and work our body off to get a meat or whatever that will last us for winter and such like that. So that urgency and that progress for humanity at the moment, it's a bit worrying because you got some kids where they're haven't got the energy to go out, they don't want to go out. You don't see no chalk drawing on the floors or anything like that.
Yeah.
We used to remember when the lights go on the streets, that's when you come in. You don't get that anymore.
We've done podcasts before, and we've done a couple of episodes on sort of growing up as kids and what do you remember, and you go out and you play Kirby, or you go out and you play like headers and volleys, or you go out and play whatever the games you used to play, like Bulldog and this, that, and the other, and it's like, well, how do you know when you because no phones or watches or anything like iPad, nothing like that. So well, when did you go home? Well, when the street lights came on. So when the street lights came on, you went home.
Yeah.
And you used to go back, so you'd be out all day and you'd be going up into the woods and you'd be like den building, or you'd be jumping brooks and streams, and climbing trees and doing whatever. Just being outside.
Yeah.
And then they say, so when did you know when your tea was? Well, your mum or dad would say, well, tea's at 6, and if you're not here by 6:15, just go in the fucking bin.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And there was none of this like, oh, you microwave it and heat reheat it, or this. It was like literally, you go home, and if it wasn't there, you can go hungry. Yeah. You know what I mean? Oh, yeah. And but that goes back to my point about the terms of reference. I'd love to go back there.
Yeah.
I'd love to go back to that time.
Yeah.
Growing up, I mean, we sort of, I suppose when we start knocking about together, what, I don't know, 14, 15, something like that.
Yeah.
And we're now 50. So we've been knocking about together for 35 years, and I'd love to go back to that growing up phase where, and growing up with 9, 10, 11, didn't know he had his set of mates, I had my set of mates, and we just never the twain shall meet sort of thing.
Happy times.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't going to say that, but now you mentioned it, But I'd love to go back to that time where everything, it wasn't easy, but it was a bit carefree, and it was a bit, you knew what you wanted, but you couldn't always get it, and you knew that there was a sacrifice to make if you wanted something, you had to make a sacrifice. Whereas these days, some parents, and I'd like to think that myself and Adam and other people, we don't make things easy for our kids, and it's not like they're spoiled and stuff. And don't get me wrong, my 2 daughters, they've had things that they wanted, but there's always been I suppose a sacrifice for that. If we do this, then you can't do that.
Yeah.
And some parents these days will go, yeah, you can have that and you can have that. And they don't understand the value of things these days. In modern society, they don't get that.
I don't think they understand the word no.
No, and you know what? That's such a weird comment for you to make, because yesterday, I was talking to somebody at work, and I'm in education, so I was talking to somebody at work, and we was talking about the type of kids that get through school, and the kids, they don't understand no. And actually, it's absolutely fine to say no to kids. It's part.
It's part of growing up.
It's part of their development.
Yeah,
It's a developmental stage that they and you read all the literature. They push the boundaries, and then when you say no, that's part of their learning. Is that there are some things that they will try to do that you say no to, that they then learn. And you've just hit the nail on the head there. It's actually okay to say no.
Yeah, but the schools right now at the same time, they are teaching kids. Like I went to one of my cousins. They did like a sports day. Right? There's no winners. There's no losers. Sorry.
Yeah.
Everybody's a winner.
Participation is key.
That's not life. What are you treating? No. You telling me I'm a man. We're men here. Right? We know full well, right? Like there's going to be losers no matter what in any game. Women, we know we're very competitive creatures, aren't we? So it's going to be a game. Doesn't matter what it is. Tennis could be anything. Drinking game, TV name, whatever.
I like that idea.
We know there's going to be a winner. Yeah. We're going to sack who the alpha male is and who's everybody's got their place in the. But we're teaching our kids that saying no, that if you participate, you participate, everybody's a winner. Yeah. Life is not like that.
No,
and I take your point to a certain degree. Everybody can participate, and everybody is allowed to participate, and sport and drama and music and everything else should be for all. Everything should be accessible to all. But you can't then turn around and say, if it is a competition, the very definition of the competition is there's winners and losers.
Yeah.
So you can't enter a competition and nobody win and nobody lose, because then it's not a competition.
It's not.
So in certain elements, yes, and they went through this phase, and I can't think when it was. It probably was mid to late 90s, early noughties, maybe. And everybody was like, "Oh, you can't lose if you go in this. There's no losers. It's just, and you get a badge for participating. You get a badge, and I'm absolutely okay with that. Participation is, for me, is fine, but as soon as you put the competition element in, the fact that it's a competition has to be winners and losers. You can't have a competition and everybody win or everybody lose. That just,
the world doesn't work that way.
No,
it doesn't work that way. And if you teach the kids that way, when they grow up, they'll hate you for it because you've not prepared them for life. Because that's not what you do.
I say it right now. Like the more I'm 37 right now, the older I get, the more pissed off I am. Do you know what I mean? And it gets like, I don't know if it is with anybody else, but the older I get, the more I know about the world, and the more I learn about a few things and all that, the more I'm pissed off I get.
Yeah.
There was one time I want to go deeper than that. I'm thinking to myself, I am an animal, right? On a mammal, on a piece of rock that's God given, and I have to pay to live on it. That I can understand if it was a man-made starship, right? And I have to pay for where I'm going to live because it's man-made and whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm on a God-given piece of land, and I have to pay my way to live.
Yeah.
How's that insane? I imagine if I had a conversation with a fish or a monkey or a bird, and he's telling me that what you have to pay, where you have to live, and you have to have a passport to go to another place and all that.
Yeah. It's bizarre. And I think we've talked about this. Okay, we've touched on it a little bit, but not that concept. Of the idea is that, like you say, we are born on this rock.
Yeah.
We don't get to decide whereabouts we're born, but
exactly.
just by sheer chance or through act of God, we are where we are, and then we have to pay our hard-earned money for the tax on the land that we live in. The money that we're paying is tax that you earn. It's tax. I would dread to think if you were to see a pound that you had and what you paid in taxes out of it, and then when you paid it onto somebody else, what was taxed out of it. It's utterly terrifying.
It's insane at the same time as well.
The other thing that bothers me about it is as well, it's like, well, we need to put up taxes. It's like, well, you don't, because the tax is a percentage.
Yeah.
So all you need to do is create more money there.
And everything's relative. Taxes are relative, aren't they? Because as soon as everything becomes if it becomes a percentage, it becomes relative. So you can put up taxes, but then if you put up taxes and everybody's pay goes up or everybody's pay goes down, then the taxes go up or down relative to that. So it's a little bit, I suppose, nonsensical when they tell, well, we're going to put taxes up. Well, okay, but then if you're going to do that because you need to generate X, Y, or Z, you need to then freeze all the incomes, because if the incomes go up and the taxes go up, then everything's relative, so nothing actually changes. If that makes sense.
And this is a problem we faced in the food industry as well. Like in April, the wages went up, but then into everything else went up. So then you got a problem now where you're like, your ingredients have gone up because of the wages and stuff, and then you have to pay your employees that wage which has been set up. But then you can't justify putting your prices up that month. Because people are surviving on the last month's wage, which is gone up. So for you as a business owner, small owner or food business, you're gonna have to take a lick in that one.
There's like a lag, isn't there? There's like a 1 month or 2 month lag. And there's a lapse between it hits you in the pocket, but there's almost that 5 week, 6 week, 7 week lag before you sort of notice that, and then you might have to put your prices up. But for that first 4 or 5 weeks,
you're losing out.
You're knackered.
You're knackered. That's what, and this is what's happened nationally, right? While food businesses or any other businesses which you got, they can't. There's some businesses that okay, they'll put the money back. But me as a businessman, and I've got to think, because I think passionately about food, and I also think about the common people as well. I'm thinking to myself, if I'm gonna go out, I want to enjoy my food. I'm not gonna pay this much and get out of my pocket. And I understand that as a business owner, it's like I want people to come in and enjoy my food, and obviously it's a privilege for them to come to my place and get their hard working money to come and pay for eat my food.
It's a choice that they've made to come to you, isn't it?
To me, exactly. It's not a forcible choice. You know what I mean? It's like we're forced to pay taxes, we're forced to pay this X and Y and whatever. But when it comes to eating your food or buying stuff or whatever, that's a choice. That's a consumer's choice, and you gotta respect that choice. So for me, I take it, I take it to heart with that one. I'm not a greedy person when I think, oh, do you know what? I'm gonna put the prices up because everything is going up. No, I understand how the world is, because I'm a person who owns a house. I'm a person who has to pay the bills. I have to do this, and I know it's not easy. It's hard at the moment. It's really, really hard, and it's sickening when you put on the TV accidentally the news is in the background, and then you got your MP you haven't even voted for saying that, oh yeah, we're just sending 30 million to Canada. We're borrowing them 30 million, which I bet nobody even knew about that. But Canada borrowed some money from us not long ago, because the American their politics and all that, their system is absolutely fucked, because America is broke. It's absolutely broke. And you're gonna know about this because now there's just wars left, right, and center. Because they can't match up with anything. You know what I mean? So it's.
I mean, on the back of that, and obviously, I'm hoping, and it doesn't happen. And we've got loads of American friends and stuff. And I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that it's getting to the point of a civil war, but it's close.
It's very close.
It really is. And you look at, and okay, Trump's been in the news over the last week or so, couple of weeks, because of his trial and this, that, and the other, and he's been found guilty. But you look at the amount of Trump supporters, and then you look at the amount of Biden supporters or Biden haters, depending on where you are. And I know a couple of guys, shout out to the guys in America, you know you are, you Biden haters, you know you are. And they're saying this guy's been dead 5 times, he's just been reincarnated, and there's a guy wearing a latex mask, and there's no way, and this, that, and the other, but and I'm not saying that America is close to civil war, but it gets to the point where you're really worried about the nations that historically you've sort of lent on for stability. So you look at America, you look at Germany, you look at France, but then you look more towards the Middle East, and you think, okay, China, Japan. Well, one of the biggest cyber threats to the UK is China, and it's not Korea, it's not North Korea, South Korea, it's China. So then you think, well, hold on a minute, like, well, where are they? And all of a sudden, and when you look then globally, you think, like, shit, like what, like where we at, like what's going on?
Listen, like that, I'll tell it from an outside point of view, right? When I was moving to the UK, I was 10 years old, right? The British pound, the sterling, was the strongest currency.
That was your benchmark, wasn't it? That was it.
It was not arguably by far the strongest currency. And when it was odd to me, because when I was in England and I was telling my friends this, they didn't know this. They didn't understand this, and I was like, it's very bizarre coming outside from England, because the pound is loved outside the England. Do you know what I mean? And the people in England didn't know this at all. So then, if you look at it right now, you know where the pound is?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I dread to think where the pound is, if I'm
Pound
honest.
is fifth,
Yeah.
and then the dollar is the 10th
Yeah.
in the whole world.
Yeah.
Before, there never used to be a 10. There used to be just 3.
Yeah.
There used to be the pound, I think it was the dollar and the yen.
Yeah.
Those are the 3 clocks when you go
Yeah,
to the
yeah.
bank, you see them.
Yeah.
Now, I think it's Q8, which is number
Yeah.
1 and all that. Them Arab places and all
Yeah.
that, they're the ones that, and the British pounds, imagine, is 5.
Wow.
That's
Fifth
scary.
in the top 10.
But here's a question then. Here's a question, because we're sort of saying, you know, like we listen to Tilly and Shana show, and they're all like convinced that civil wars are coming. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're convinced there ain't even going to be an election in the US. It's going to go pear
Tits up.
shaped before
Yeah.
then. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're convinced of it. But what we're saying is that we've got a nation of soft people.
Oh.
We've got a generation of soft people.
I'm glad you touched on that.
But do they need hard times? And I'm not advocating this, but this is a question I'm chucking out there. Do they need the hard times to toughen them up? Do we need the shit to hit the fan to reset the balance?
Can I touch on that?
Of course you can.
Of course you can.
This is I've thought about this the most as well with England, right? You look at it historically, right? The English Empire, if you're going to look at it in the English Empire before, right, was in history arguably the only empire that ruled most of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, right? That's a fact.
Yeah.
It's no ifs or buts about it. It's a fact. Now, for some reason along the line, the people of this nation have gone really soft. And I don't know where it's come from and where it's at. Because if you look at the 70s, there was a lot of riots, or a lot of people standing up, a lot of the workforces coming together, and things were getting changed. Right now, at the moment, the British community, society, or as a whole, whatever, is very tamed.
Yeah.
Very, very tamed. If you look at the French, they've got it right. They will. When they go off, they go off.
Oh, yeah.
They go off. They go off in a big way. Like in England, if you look at the 1200s, right? The 1200s. If you put a little quick history, people know 1216 was King John was in power. Now he's arguably the worst king that England's ever had, because he was just in debt all the time. He just wanted money. He was fighting wars that he wasn't winning at all. So then the lords in turn had to pay a big fine, a fee, or whatever. If they don't get paid, land get took over. It sounds a bit similar right now with banks and stuff like that. So this is what the king was on. So then the lords thought, no, we've had enough now. We're going to march up. Everybody gathered around, millions of people gathered around, went up into London, took over London, and they forced the king to write the Magna
Carta.
Yeah.
Magna Carta.
That's it. People got together. They got together. They rose up. They did what they had to do. So at the time right now, I feel the people, right, what's happened is people, there's not that much. Okay, we're going through some hard stuff, but we're not really going through hardship. Where when I'm talking about hardship, electricity's still on.
Yeah.
You can watch your Netflix. You can watch your shows. You're comfortable. You know full well if you go to an empty building, there's going to be clean water that you can drink, because by law, it has to have running water in an empty building, no matter what.
Yeah.
You know full well that you can go to Morrison and pick up a food bag and such. If you look at the Philippines, when the people rose up, and chased their MP or mayor, whatever it was, there was no electricity, there was dirty water, things were like hard living conditions. But I think this nation is just tamed. You know, when the best way to describe it is household dogs used to be wolves one time.
I take your point. I think, have we become a soft nation? Yes, probably. Do we want to go back? And I'm not saying that we did. Do we want to go back to no electricity, dirty water, and you have to work for that? And maybe not. But I do think change needs to happen in terms of almost I don't know what to phrase it is, like a realization that where we are as a society, that
it won't get to that. Do you know why I say that? Because again, if you look, we're talking about the 1200s and all that, it affected the lords, the rich people. Now, because nothing's affecting any rich people or lords in this country, there'll be no change.
No,
none at all. Now, if people, right, because we're that comfortable, it's not happening outside our doors. People are comfortable. Yes, it's tough. Yes, we're paying all those taxes and all that, but we're still sleeping in a warm bed. We're still getting whatever
Yeah,
you need to get. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, if people got together and thought to themselves, like, give you like London. London is a perfect example here. There's 8 million people in London. 8 million people decided not to go to work for one day. Do you know how much that will affect the economy? Do you know how much of a knock-on effect that would do?
I mean, I would hate to hazard a guess
Yeah.
in terms of like your loss of income revenue. This that I don't know is the answer, but I like catastrophic. I can imagine.
It'd be diabolical.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody so do you know what the government what it's doing, and we're not happy with it. We're not doing it. We're not going to go away.
Just for one day.
Just for one day.
For
See
one
what
day.
happens. See what the market. How it happens in the market.
Yeah.
Just for one day. London city, 8 million people not going to work.
Can you imagine that?
I can't. I mean, the flip side of it, and I mentioned at the start, is the election, and I wonder with that in terms of we talked just before we got started. I'm not a big fan of the Conservative government. I tend to think they look after themselves, they look after the wealthy and the people who back their party.
Yeah.
Don't like them. And when we talk about creating hardship, they've certainly created some. They need to look at themselves in terms of how they've controlled the energy prices and what have you, or lack of control of the energy prices. That they could do more to help the people who do need it, but they haven't. And I'm not saying for 1 second that Labour will be any better. So the whole system is almost set up so that these guys who are in power, looking after, and that's if they are in power, whether it's big businesses that they.
Well, I was just going to say, isn't it politicians or is it big
they-
business?
they-
I know in America you look at corporate business, big business, and they're the power brokers, aren't
I
they?
don't think it's that different here.
No, I'm sure not.
I
It's
don't
no
think it's that
different. Let
different.
me give you an example. Then. You know, Tony Blair, when he was in power, obviously when he was in power, there's the 9/11 Afghan war. Do you know what Tony Blair does right now?
Is he a peace envoy or something like
He's
that?
a CEO.
He's an advisor. Yeah, I was going to say he's an advisor to.
And he earns a lot,
Yeah.
lot of money. And and Emin Bush did war crimes.
Oh yeah,
which they're never ever going to go.
No, of course they won't. No, I mean, I've said it many times before. Those two guys are war criminals.
Yeah,
they warmongered. They started a war on the basis that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, which they knew damn well were not there. Yeah.
But at the time, at the time we were alive when it was happening. We all got bamboozled by the adverts, what was going on. We blamed the one party because everybody did fall into it. I'd say arguably 96% of the world population believe that there's mass
weapons of mass destruction. But that goes back to the and I hate to liken it, and I'm not likening it to your Hitler's Nazi Germany, but it goes back to that propaganda, and you can only make decisions and assumptions on the information that you're provided. Now, if big business or corporations or politicians, if they control the information that you're provided, then effectively you can only make the decisions based on that information what you're getting through, what you're seeing on your TV, what you're seeing in newspapers, what you're seeing online. I mean, now, and if they control that, then effectively they can manipulate a society to believe that X, Y, or Z is happening. Now, look, just the record. Do I think that happened back in the day? I'll be sitting, possibly because of where I work and what I do. I sit on the fence. However, do I feel as though that can happen? Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I do think that people and society can be manipulated to actually quite a serious nth degree. If you think, if tomorrow something happened and there's a massive cataclysmic event or whatever, and every news station and every paper and every website said you have to raise arms and you have to join this, and you do it because every single outlet is saying this is the right thing to do.
Perfect example, COVID.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's a perfect example.
So everybody is saying this is happening, so you have to do this, and you have to conform, and you have to do this, and I know there's there's COVID, there's non-believers, believers, and there's people that took the jab and didn't take the jab. And look, everybody did what they felt as though were right at that time.
Yeah.
But if there was enough out there, there was enough literature out there, I suppose, for people who were the non-vax people to say, I'm not taking it because of this reason. But there's enough conflicting evidence to say, for the people that did take the vax, I'm going to take it because of this reason.
Yeah.
I think if all of those outlets were aligned and every single outlet that you could possibly access said you have to do this, I think people would do it. And that's how you manipulate society.
I think that's a part of the reason why a lot of people did or didn't get it. And then you've used the phrase there, not getting the vax. It wasn't that. You were an anti-vaxxer. You were against the process. You know what I mean? So you were the problem.
Yeah.
That's how you were labeled. And again, that's media manipulation. Those terms.
Yeah.
Listen, we won't go down that route. We don't want to get flagged by that again.
Yeah, we don't want to get shut down again. Oh, yeah, we've been there, done that.
What is the solution though? Because like right now at the moment, it's voting the lesser evil, isn't it? Now, what is the solution though? Like, for people who don't understand voting or don't believe in voting or whatever? Because I know there's people out there who vote just for their credit scores, to get the credit score up.
Yeah,
that's the big thing at this moment in time. Now, would you say if it was a party, somebody came up with a party now for the common man, it was a common person who's a working man and everything, started off a party and said, listen, I've experienced everything what you guys have gone through. This is in about what, I don't know, like 30K a year and everything. I know what drives, I know what we want and all that. Would you stand by that person? More over than these Harvard.
Yeah, I would.
You'd like to say yes. The issue that I have with that is there's so many exterior things that you need to consider. Like back in the day, you had Labour far left and you had Conservatives far right. And again, we go back to this continuum and you've got Labour and Conservative. So there we go. The issue that I have now with politics is that you've gone like that. And most parties, okay, yes, they're going to differ on certain things, but they're not polar opposites now.
Oh no.
So most political parties now, I'm not saying have a similar view of X, Y, or Z because there's always going to be differences, but generally speaking, have softened towards
similar goal,
the middle road, and so back in the day where you were like staunch Labour or staunch Tory and with the greatest respect to the Lib Dems, there's no point voting for them because they were never ever going to get the voters that they needed.
Yeah.
So you either basically you were in the UK, and I don't care what people say. In the UK, it's similar to the American in terms of Democrats and Republicans. In the UK, it's Tory or Conservative.
Yeah.
There was never, ever, ever, and I still don't believe there will ever be really enough of a swell of opinion to get Lib Dems in, other than a hung parliament or other than
there won't be. But that in itself is the problem because everybody says the Liberal Democrats are never going to drum up enough power. So everybody then thinks, well, I'm not going to vote for them. There's no point.
Yeah.
So that's it. That piece of media is done. It's out there. We've been brainwashed. There's no point voting for them because they ain't going to make any difference.
And do I agree with you? Yeah, potentially I do.
Yeah.
But because we're in a society that potentially has listened to various propaganda and listened to various things, really your only two choices are Labour or Conservative.
Yeah.
And with the greatest respect to Mr Farage, and people might agree with Independence, and people might agree with Green Party, and people might Monster Raven Looney Party, or whatever it may be, there would only ever really be your choice between Labour and Conservative.
Yeah.
So that's similar to, and I know our system is completely different than America, but you've only really got in America, you've got Democrat or Republican, and there's only really those two parties.
Right.
So we're sort of in a situation where historically they've been way apart, and now they sort of are closer together.
Yeah.
So actually, what you're doing, you're not really voting, in my opinion, you're not really voting on their political stances or what they believe. Like, I think you're voting on the people. So you're voting on Keir Starmer, Rishi Sunak.
Yeah.
And you're not really voting. I mean, back in the day, you had Thatcher and the Conservative government, and you had Michael Ford, and you had you had politicians who were vastly and wildly apart on their theories on what they do.
Yeah.
Whereas nowadays
there's no.
It's not far left
more
and
of a-
far right.
It's more of a popularity contest.
It is.
than
Yeah,
anything.
Of course,
That's what it
and,
is.
and you only have to look at, like I say, my two girls are old enough now, so my eldest is old enough to vote, so my eldest is 18 and my youngest is 17, my eldest is 19 next month. But but they were talking about like Labour in particular are targeting the younger vote.
Yeah.
So what they do is they're doing loads of social media and actually quite funny social media. So they're doing TikTok and they're doing Instagram, they're doing this, that, and the other. So you go online and you look, they're targeting the young people. And I was talking to somebody at work today, and they were saying that so Farage and the independent people, and whether you agree with Tommy Robinson and this and that, but they're targeting the younger people and the intelligent younger people to try to convince them. It's not your, no disrespect, it's not your knuckleheads. It's the intelligent young people that you're trying to.
High number of
And there's a high number of
There's
it,
a high
absolutely,
number. There's a massive
100%.
number. I mean, look at the millionaires now.
100%.
23-year-olds driving around the Lamborghinis.
And it's those people that you're trying to convince, because
most.
and then you see stuff and you target them on the social media, and the Labour, the Labour social media talks about, and they take the piss out of the Conservatives, but in a funny way. Whereas you go on the Conservatives one, and it's like, our policy says this, our policy, and you're like, okay, that's boring.
Now they're targeting the elderly.
Yeah.
You know what
So
I mean?
the Labour target the youngers. We're taking the piss out of the Conservatives because they said this and they said this, but we're doing it in a really funny way.
Yeah.
So we're targeting the younger generation because we're going on TikTok, we're going on Instagram, we're going on social media.
Number than that older
100%.
generation.
So it's all about manipulation of the voting populace, which we sort of know.
It's giving people the illusion of choice.
Yeah.
You voted, you've selected, you've participated. You haven't, because it don't make a difference. It don't make a difference.
Therefore, okay, so I'm going to throw a question at you now. And I think it was over the weekend. I can't for life remember I was talking to. But they said, because I said, I'm not sure who I want to vote for. I might just not vote. And they went, well, that's just stupid. Because if you don't vote, then that's like a wasted vote. And I was like, is it wasted? And she went, yeah, because they will assume that because of, and I say they being the electoral roll or whoever, they will assume that you either can't make the poll or there's a reason why you can't make the poll. Not because you can't make your mind up, but because there's circumstance which means you can't get there. So the best thing to do is to go to the polling station and spoil your paper. So spoil your paper. So you might put XX, or you might write a comment, or so basically what that's doing is that's showing the electoral roll or whoever that you have been bothered to turn up. Yeah. You have been bothered to take the time to vote. You just don't agree with any of the policies or whatever for X, Y, and Z. Yeah. So therefore, you've made a choice to spoil your paper. Yeah. And if loads of people wrote "Vote Tall Boy Radio" on there, or whatever, then great. And that, and you know what? Please go and do that. And don't do that. No, actually, no, go and do that.
Yeah, do it now.
Yeah.
But if everybody went and vote Tall Boy Radio, what people will be thinking is, wow, all these people they've taken their time to go and vote, but they're not going to vote for Labour, they're not going to vote for Conservative because they probably don't agree with X, Y, or Z. Whereas if you don't vote, Labour will turn around and go, yeah, but well, Adam probably, there might be circumstance where Adam couldn't get to the station, or there were circumstances which meant he couldn't vote against us, or for. Whereas if you do make that, you make the effort to go, that's almost a vote in itself. In as much as I don't agree with you, I don't agree with you. So excuse my French. So fuck off the lot of you.
But the problem is, where, like, especially in my generation with the 30s and all that, we come from like a generation where there's voting and stuff like that. But there's a mentality of like, what's the point of voting? Because no matter who we're going to vote for, there's going to be a dickhead there.
Anyway. And
there's a high number of people like that, and especially from Black community as well. Like, pointless whoever we're going to vote, because no matter what's going to happen, it's going to be the same shithole anyway. So what's the point?
And that's the problem in terms of it's going to be the same old shit because historically you've had here and here, and if these got in, it would be different than if these got in. Yeah. Whereas now it's the same old shit, different face. So they're sort of almost a bit merged as such in terms of party. So it doesn't really matter. So you turn around, well, I don't really want to vote for Sunak. I don't really want to vote for Starmer. So what's the fucking point?
Yeah.
Because actually, and as I say, you go back to, well, testing my sort of political history now, but you go back to sort of the 50s, 60s, 70s, and you look at really staunch Labour, really staunch Conservative, you think, Christ, they are miles apart. And I mean, like, miles apart,
wasn't it?
in terms of Tories believe this and Labour believe this, and on every single, so immigration and tax and this, everything, they polar opposites.
Yeah.
Whereas now,
same thing, just different things.
They're very similar.
Yeah.
I don't think you have to go back that far. We had a guy before Starmer, Corbyn, who was a traditional Labour candidate and Labour leader. He was someone who genuinely believed in socialism, and what he was proposing, they didn't last very long. God bless him. The ousted him out because they knew it wasn't going to be very successful. But what Corbyn was proposing was the closest thing to socialism that we've seen. It is the closest thing to old Labour, and that's why it didn't last. The other thing that I think, when we talk about the Liberal Democrats, the other side of it is when you talk about not going to spoil your ballot paper and what have you. There's the other argument that gets made is if you don't vote, you don't have a say. And actually, that's not true because we've just identified there. It don't make any difference really who you vote for. The problem is the system.
Yeah.
The problem is we're all soft.
Yeah.
We're all malleable. We're all
Mellow.
we're easy to manipulate. So nothing is ever going to change while things stay as they are. And that's the truth of it.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to really upset the apple carts, the likes of, us.
Yeah.
We've got it okay.
Yeah.
Even the people who are struggling, well, they do have fresh running water. They can.
They do
get
have
through
it okay.
Listen, there's people out there who've got very arduous times, and I'm not making light of your situation. Please, please, please believe me, I am not. But the times in general, we do have it too easy, and we won't make a change. And now there's two choices that two paths you think. Then it's either intentional, and they've created those times so that they've got it, and they can stay doing what they're doing, and every now and then we get pissed off because Boris has been having parties while we're not allowed to go to funerals. You know what I mean? So there are times like that, or it's just evolved that way. We've tried to create better times for our people, and I do genuinely believe that good men have done that. But the people who are there now are not good men, and they are continually taking advantage of the situation.
I think it's intentional.
I
I mean, it's like a big experiment. The West politics is a big experiment.
It feels that way. It does feel that way.
Don't get started on the whole whatever episode we were talking about. We just a big experiment and we just had a winner. So let's not start.
I need to watch that.
Well, yeah, you do need to watch that because that's mind blowing. But I think, are we at risk of becoming like a nation state in terms of it doesn't really matter who's in? Their philosophies and their policies are so similar these days that it's almost negligible. Like so Tory are in at the moment. So if Starmer gets in
right now, I don't think that's an if.
Okay, so well, yeah. Whether you agree with that or not, okay. Yeah. You think Starmer's a shoe-in for getting in?
Yeah.
You think he's a shoe-in for getting in? I'm not convinced, and that doesn't mean I'm not convinced about Starmer. I'm not convinced about Sunak.
I'm just not convinced about Starmer or Sunak.
And I'm not hugely convinced if Starmer does get in that he's the right person for Labour. But that's possibly a different conversation for a different podcast. But what significant difference would you notice if Starmer was in? And from the Labour government after July the whatever it is, 5th?
Fourth.
So on July the 5th, what significant difference would you notice?
Nothing. Nothing changes.
What significant difference would you notice in 12 months?
There's nothing going to change.
Possibly not.
Nothing changes.
So therefore, and excuse my French, what the fuck's the reason then?
And then there's going to be people that, what's the point?
And that's right. So what's the point? Because we're in a society, in my opinion, we're in a society now where the politics, and whether that's because of world world politics or world environment or world government, whatever, I don't know. But we're in a situation now where in the UK, our polar opposite governments actually aren't polar opposite. They're so similar.
Yeah.
So it actually makes very, very, very little difference to me and you as professional people, as people that have worked for a living and have you're a self-employed business owner. You know, we've got very good jobs. Thank you very much. We've got a wife and kids and a nice house, and we wouldn't notice significant differences if Labour or Tory were in.
No, none at all.
So
None at all.
therefore,
what's the point?
What's the fucking point?
What's the-
I suppose what I'm saying.
So, like, for people, for like-minded people, right, who are sick of the politics, which I see most the growing number when I speak to people who come into my restaurant, where there's a high number of people who are selling up the business and just moving abroad. There's people who are just sick of the circus, and just like, you know what, the amount of taxes that I'm paying, the amount of money that I'm paying for a mortgage or whatever, I can live somewhere better off with the amount of money that I get. And I have. And we were speaking about the pound and sterling early on. Now, no matter how, you know, we may be in 5th place or whatever, the pound still holds value in itself.
Yeah, of course it does. Yeah,
it does massively.
Yeah.
So now, you know, I've got a friend who's an accountant. He would say, I rang him. You know, I haven't spoken to him for 2 years. I rang him and his, you know, his phone was ringing. I was, where are you? He's like, oh, I'm in where's this place now? Where the Monaco. I'm living in Monaco. I'm like, what the fuck? How the fuck have you managed that? He's like, oh, my parents were Irish and all that. You know, I got the passport, this and in Europe, and then I'm to tax. He says, listen,
tax haven, happy days.
Happy days. He says, I was reading, right, the tax paper, the tax year for 2020. Says it was something about 80 billion or something like that. Yeah. So it's like 200 weird and all that, 200 page, sorry, of this. And he says, when I was reading it, I was shaking my head.
Yeah.
Shaking my head because most of the money is criminal. What they're doing,
Yeah.
What the government are doing, it is absolutely criminal.
But would it be the same criminal or less or more criminal if Labour were in as opposed to Conservative?
Doesn't matter.
That's my point. And that goes back to my point about it. And you know, and your friend in Monaco, and God bless him, and he's done very, very well for himself.
Very well.
And he's
him now.
yeah, you can fuck off. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I've got my friend. He's in Dubai. I've got 2 of them as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I'm on the Facebook, Instagram. I see them on the yachts and everything. After doing a 12-hour shift. Oh, fuck.
Yeah, exactly.
You're blocked. I get a message. How are you? You're right. Oh, just.
Yeah, I'm on my personal yacht. How are you? Yeah, I'm just in a 14-hour shift, so I'll just fuck off out. You know what I mean?
And he's like, oh, I just come back from abroad to know this. I said, I've got 2 days off. I've earned this much. I said, yeah.
But you know, so you go back to so what significant difference would it make? Significant difference. And look, there will be various social classes. God, that's an awful phrase. But various social classes in the UK, and you've got your socio and economic griefing, and you've got A's and B's and D's and E's and all that sort of thing. But for the majority, I would argue for the majority, and I don't know, but I would argue for the majority of the UK populace, it wouldn't make a significant difference as to whether Tory or Labour are in.
No.
It won't make a
significant difference.
Someone talking like my accountant actually was very, very wise in policy. He said you'll be surprised when it comes to the election how close it will be.
And that's what I'm saying. I don't think it'd be as big a landslide as you think it might be.
No, I don't think it's going to be as big as a landslide as they're predicting. When you look at the odds, you know, I was looking at how many seats that the Tories are forecast to lose.
It's predicted for them to lose a lot.
Yeah, over 200 is the most common one.
Yeah.
Now, I've got my money on 100 to 150. That's all I'm going to say. So, you know what I mean? However, that said, I do think it will be closer than they're predicting because let's face it, they always are. They never get the polls. They never get it right in the polls. Never get it right in the polls. However, people are genuinely angry at the Conservative Party this time. They're angry of everything they've seen for the last 14 years, rightly or wrongly. Rightly or wrongly. There's going to be a lot of people. The amount of Conservative politicians which aren't going to stand this time because they know their numbers are up. it is going to be a landslide in Labour's favour, and because people are angry about Brexit, people are angry about COVID, people are angry about the way the businesses were just left to rot while they looked after their pals, while they were letting them, letting them make like PPE and stuff like that. People are genuinely and rightly angry about that. But 5 years from now, you're going to be just as angry at Labour.
Of course they are.
You know what I mean?
And what you've got to look at is, and I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but had Labour been in when COVID
Wouldn't been any
hit,
different.
it would be absolutely no different.
I asked this question myself, like if Labour were in power when COVID hit, would it have been a major disaster, or would it have been like the same?
In my opinion, it'd have been absolutely no different, because Labour would have made certain decisions, and the whole populace would have gone, "Fucking hell, why are they doing that?
Yeah.
Oh my god, why are they doing this? Well, let's plough loads of money into the healthcare. So during COVID, let's plough loads of money into healthcare." You'd have had people going, "But what about the old people's homes, and what about schools, and what about this, and what about?" So it doesn't matter. It's just a merry-go-round of. And look, in my opinion, I mean, I work in education. So in my opinion, you've got education and you've got healthcare. And they're the two main, everything is down to healthcare. Everything is down to education. And they're the two main drivers as to where people focus on. They focus on education, they focus on the kids, and they focus on their health. Two main drivers. So it doesn't really matter whether or not Tory are in or Labour are in. If Labour were in during COVID times, they might have said, and I don't know, they might have said, yeah, you can go visit all the relatives in the care homes. That's absolutely fine. Conservatives didn't, but Labour went, yeah, you could have done that. But you'd have had fucking uproar from people going, oh my God, why are you allowing that?
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If Labour were in during COVID, it'd have been, the fallout would have been exactly the same. For slightly different reasons, but the fallout would have been exactly the same.
So I've got questions, and you just touched on that. You're in education, working in education. Now, how do you see the education in England with the rest of the world? When I say the rest of the world, like with the kids like in China, North Korea, India.
Probably a question for a completely different podcast. You know what?
Is he willing to put it out there on record?
We're now an hour and 2 minutes into this podcast, so that might be a time. Was that a politically correct answer?
Education and politics are similar.
Oh no, look. I think. What I will say is, I think for any political party, I think there are certain scapegoats that are available to them. I think you look at education. I think you look at the National Health Service, or NHS. I think you look at defence and immigration. I think there's certain.
Housing's a disaster in the UK as well.
So there's certain things you hang your hat on, and look, I can talk for another hour on education and stuff. So maybe it's a great question in terms of historically, where were we in terms of education on the global front? Where are we now? Where will we be? I do think the UK education system has a lot to learn from certain other educational systems around the world, and that's me sitting on the fence.
Yeah, but don't you think it's got to do a lot with culture more than anything?
I think there's a lot to do with culture, and I think culture and value and vision, and I think. Look, I can turn around and say I want in my school a certain vision, a certain culture, a certain ethos.
Yeah.
And I think that boils down to the leaders of that school. So if you were leaders of your school, you'd want your school to reflect your own culture, vision, ethos, and so on. So integrity, honesty, openness, transparency, and all of those values that you cherish as a person. And you would want your school to mirror that. As a society, do all of our schools do that? I'd probably say no, we don't.
No.
And genuinely, I think this is probably another conversation, another podcast.
Yeah,
because I think we could go on. You could open up.
invite me onto that podcast.
But yeah, no,
we
look,
will, we
you
will.
know, and look,
Definitely.
I'm happy to talk about education, and
Yeah.
I'm happy to talk about my philosophy on education and where we are, and my philosophy on education compared to education in the US and education in terms of China and Japan and various other places. So, yeah, I do genuinely think it's something we could open up.
The reason why I asked this as well, because like when we're talking about early on, we touched on the subject about society as how we haven't got, the backbone to say no or whatever, and people to rise up or whatever, a revolution and all that. But don't you think that's a cause of education in itself as well from the start? Because these kids who are growing up, they're going to be our future leaders and they're going to be the future voters and stuff.
I think
Now-
they probably have, and right is that I think they probably have is sometimes is that schools can do what schools can do. The issue that some schools have, and I'm not suggesting that this is my school or other schools, I think sometimes the issue that you have is that people go into education because they want genuinely they want the best for the next generation, and they are invested in the youth, and I think sometimes it's difficult when as a school you're trying to impose boundaries and rules on certain students, and when they go home those boundaries and limitations are not there.
Yeah.
So I think as a society, I think going back to what we said an hour ago,
Yeah.
I think society nowadays is very much like, I want that, so I'm going to get it. I want that, so I'm going to get it. I want that, so I'm going to get it. And as a parent, you go, I'm going to buy that. I'm going to buy that. I'm going to buy that. Whereas in schools, I think schools try to implement
So
this in
basically,
the policies.
I'll say it for instance, the most politest way of saying it is where parents know that the kid's a little shit, right? But they won't gonna like say it in front of them because they want to befriend that kid. But you're gonna be the enemy, fully knowing you're the teacher, you're the enemy, so they're gonna be on the kid's side.
Yeah.
And I've seen this loads of times because when I'm doing mentoring or anything like that, you know yourself, like you'd call parenting, little kids being a little shit. They fully know that the kid's being a little shit. But when it comes into the class, telling that kid off and all that, they will take the kid's side.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? So you can have the broken relationship that they have at home. Because my mother always said when we were growing up, charity becomes from home. So whatever manners and whatever that you doing at home, you got to carry that outside because
100%.
you don't want to come back and embarrass my household with that sort of behavior.
I think there needs to be a synergy between
Parents and teachers,
home and school, and home and education, and this is why schools work incredibly hard on community liaison and school home relationships, in terms of what we're trying to do in school is develop X, Y, and Z. And I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that schools should be involved in parenting and how you parent your kid, because ultimately how you parent your kid is up to you, and we would never ever my school would never get involved in terms of how I would say to Adam or yourself, how you parent.
Listen, I need all the advice I can get with my eldest.
And I would never say that, as a head of school, I would never ever tell a mother or a father how you parent your kid. What I would do as a head of school is to say, these are the values and the beliefs that we're trying to impose on the young people when they're with us. We would absolutely appreciate your support if, when they're at home, you try to continue and implement those values and there's a consistency.
But see, you saying that now, and we're living in a society of woke parents, and one of them will turn around and say, wow, Rothschild, he said he wants a nation of thinkers. Doesn't want a nation of thinkers, he wants a nation of workers. These are the guys who implemented these sort of things, because when the bell goes off, the kid needs to get up. It's like a bell going to a factory. You're gonna get that sort of argument, but I want my kid to think for himself and all this and that and all that.
And 100%. But what? We're now an hour and 9 minutes in, and we might get further.
Oh, I've got another question yet.
But what I would do as an educationalist and as a leader of schools is to say, everybody's individual and everybody has their own specific needs and everybody has their own specific wants, and what we need to do is we need to develop a society and appreciation that everybody is an individual, and everybody has certain needs and certain wants. What we're trying to do is we're trying to develop an understanding in the young children as well as the parents in terms of how can we best promote what's good for that young person, but also allow them to be successful citizens in society. And our goal as a school is we want to provide them all of the best opportunities that they have. But ultimately, if they don't academically achieve, what we do want them to achieve is to become successful citizens. Now, for some people, that might just be holding a door open and saying please and thank you.
Yeah.
For some people, it might be being able to get on a bus at destination A and get off at destination B and be absolutely fine. So whatever that goal is for that young person, we want to help them to achieve that along their way.
Wouldn't you agree that to prepare these sort of young men or young women or whatever they want to call themselves these days, is to prepare them in the real world, just talking to them about, how to work your finances, how to get a good credit score,
100%.
work,
100%.
mortgage works, how how to file your taxes and whatever.
And we do a lot of work, and again, we're an hour and 10 minutes in, an hour and 11 minutes in. We do a lot of work in terms of our careers post-16 provision. Right. So we talk about transition from secondary school into college and university. We also talk a lot about differences between credit cards and debit cards.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about what's APR.
Yeah.
So if you have a credit card, what does that mean? So if you buy this, what does that mean? How do you interpret a wage slip?
Yeah.
So when you get a wage slip, what does that mean? What's national insurance? What's tax? What's this? What's that? What's your pension? What's this? So we do a lot of work into trying to prepare our young people for. And I know that the curriculum has changed now, and you have to be in education up to the age of 18. So you might go to a college, but at 18 you could leave. So we try to provide some of our kids with an opportunity, because we understand that not every student that comes to us, because the nature of our school, and that's a different podcast, but because the nature of our school, not everybody is on the academic route. So therefore, you will get some people that want to go into the manual labor, will go into the apprenticeship type route, and the trades, and that's this, that, and the other. So at the age of 18, they're going to leave education.
Yeah.
Some of our kids might go on to university, but generally speaking, at the age of 18, they're going to leave. Yeah. So we have to start to provide them with the necessary tools and skills to understand.
Is that just only your school that would do something like that?
Well, no. I think, look, in an idealistic world, I'd love to think that every school has the same type of post-16 provision that we have, and that we provide for our kids. Am I naive enough to think that happens? No. Would I love that to happen? Yes. And there's loads of qualifications and courses out there, and you look at, I think it's the FIS, financial institution, something, and you look at APR, and you look at bank accounts, and you look at this, and you look at mortgages, and what's the difference between a tracker and a interest only, and this. So all of the things that you've just listed, to say, how do you prepare those young people for life beyond school?
Yeah.
And when they start earning a wage, or what's the difference between a wage and a salary?
Exactly.
I mean, I'm not you two, because you'll know. But if I was to ask the general populace, what's the difference between a wage and a salary? Would they know that?
No. And that's the thing, though. If a politician was speaking about this sort of stuff, like, do you know what? We know we're not doing it right. We're not getting it right. We've listened. This is what we're going to start implementing into schools. This is what we need to do to prepare our future generation of what to expect, so they don't be left lagging or don't even know anything about mortgages. It's only now I started to know about mortgages in my 30s.
Yeah.
Right now, do you know what I mean? Like, there's a poll. There was a statistic that came out that's saying that young people are not buying houses anymore. They don't know how to get into a mortgage or anything like that. Can't blame them how much they are costing right now.
Yeah.
But they don't know where to start.
And I think certain governments will do various help to buy schemes, and you've got your 80% mortgages, whereby you will own 80% of your house, and your housing local authority will own 20%, and you repay it back over, and so on and so on and so on. But
other mortgage advice is available.
Yeah. Now, if a politician was saying all this kind of stuff,
there are courses out there.
Yeah.
And there are those educational channels out there. Are they as prevalent as me as a school leader would want? Probably not. Are they as well known in terms of the parents? Because a lot of the time, it's the parents that you have to educate, and that's not being disrespectful to any parent that's out there.
No.
But it's the parents that you have to educate in terms of what opportunities are out there for their son or daughter.
Yeah.
In terms of within society today, what can your son or daughter do at the age of 16 or 18 or 21 or whatever? And that now, as I say, I'm more than happy to do
Touch
another
on that
podcast
when
and touch
it's
on
on
that
Yeah.
another podcast.
Yeah.
What's your question, dude? So,
Well, my question was, and it was something you said there about people getting into education because they want to make a difference and they want to make young people's lives a little bit more positive. And there's a part of me that believes a lot of people will originally get into politics with that same principle in mind, that they want to make a difference and they want to make the world or at least the country, a better place. We acknowledge now that ultimately they all get swallowed up into the system. It works the way it works, and eventually they just become followers just like everybody else. So it's very easy for the three of us to sit here and tell you what the problems are.
Yeah.
The challenge is, what's the solution? And you've got a very short period of time to answer that question, really.
look,
Tough one.
I think the solution is another hour's podcast, but I think I look, there isn't a solution. Currently there isn't a solution, which is a simple answer. And I'll try and wrap up in another minute or so. I think there are people out there that potentially can get to the solution, but they need time, they need investment, and they need resources, and they need buy-in from political parties. I think they need buy-in from media outlets. I think they need buy-in from all of the propaganda outlets that we've said previously, radio, TV, social media, and also to promote what they feel as though is the right way to go. Now, what the right way to go is again open to debate. Are you on A or B or X or Y? I think there needs to be a cross-party collaboration in terms of how do we do this and what is the best thing. There's no simple answer, and you gave us an absolutely impossible question to answer, because I don't think there is an answer.
No.
Or there is, but it's not a one-line throwaway. Oh well, we need to do this. I think there's a lot of deep thinking that needs to happen, and we need to think about how we're going to address what you mentioned right at the start in terms of the woke society and this, that, and the other. And I think there's loads of things we can do. As I say, I don't think there's an easy answer. I think it potentially is another podcast, and I'm more than happy to come and talk about my philosophy on education and stuff. So I don't know what your thoughts are. I don't know what is there an answer?
See, my answer's a bit out there. To solve any problem, I think, on the planet or anything like that with politics and stuff, I think you have to be a person who has got nothing to lose. I think you have to be a person who is legitly who's got no family, no loved ones, no nothing that the people who are in power they can use against you. For you to start to, they always say there's a word, how is paved on good intentions. You're gonna have to do a lot of evil. You're gonna have to do a lot of crazy stuff for the world to be the way it is, and at the end of it, you're going to be crucified. That's the only solution that I think. I know it's a very far away, but like you said, there's not an easy answer. Because
I don't think there's an easy answer, and I think for every answer to the question, there are some people who are going to be hurt along the way.
Yeah,
and there will be some people that will fall along the wayside and fall by the wayside, and there'll be some people that don't agree with you, and some people that don't. So therefore,
it goes back to what we were talking about, with the competitions and stuff, where we're teaching these kids, where we're like, you compete into something that as long as you compete. In the real world, it's cutthroat. Yeah. Somebody's gonna fall, somebody's gonna lose, somebody's gonna do, suffer for somebody to stand up tall.
Yeah.
So for a politician or a leader that we're looking for is somebody who's willing to risk it all, really and truly, for the benefit of mankind or human beings, to be quite honest.
All right, so. Right, I'm just going to ask another question. Which could so if that's the person and they're going to stand for are they going to stand risking it all? or are they going to stand knowing that they've got everything cushy around them because they're the figurehead and therefore everybody else will fall?
Depends on the person.
Because you've got your figurehead up there,
Yeah.
and is he prepared to fall, or will he go, I'm okay in my little cushy number up here, but actually all of my followers are prepared to fall?
Yeah.
And that opens up anyway.
It opens up like again, like if you look at like if you look at the story of England again, going back on the history of England, where at that time you look at like King Arthur story. A young boy pulls the sword from the stone, very innocent, wants the best for everything, but then he creates Camelot. Camelot and everything, everyone's all good and all that, and then but there's people underneath him who's going to put him down. So
but you say that Camelot's all good and all that, but there'll be people back in the day that will think, well, Camelot's fucking shit because actually I was all right then, but now Camelot's arrived and come. I'm now bollocks because of the X, Y, and Z.
Exactly.
So there's always those people. There's always those people.
100%. You know what they say in Dubai? Like Dubai's been around for 30 years. But to build that city, there was a lot of dark secrets.
100%.
On that place. Do you know what I mean? So
there'll be there'll be a few people that know where lots of skeletons are buried and stuff.
So like
you know what I mean?
There's that great saying
100%.
of how the road to hell is paved on good intentions, and that's
so. When the vote happens or when the polls are open, so are you Lib Dem? Are you Green? Are you Independent? Are you Monster Raven? Are you?
Honestly, I don't know, but I can tell you this: it won't be Conservative. That's the one thing I'm hell bent on. I won't vote for them, and I'm hoping.
Why is that?
Because of the last 14 years and what we've seen. I don't like the way. I don't like Brexit, the way that was done. Like Cameron should have been more steadfast in that. He knew it was a stupid idea if that ever got voted in. Yeah, that is what he couldn't afford to stay after
he
that.
He knew what sort of shit show was going to
Oh,
happen.
he fucked up.
Now, this is the thing. What I want to say: Brexit, is it the politicians' fault or is it the people's fault? Because it's the people voted.
The people voted, but the people
the people were only voting because of what they were told, and therefore it goes back to what I said 30 however many minutes ago. It's about that propaganda, and you can only vote on the information that you're given.
But again, the majority of the British populace don't really know what the outside.
But there was a stat. There was a stat, and this might be the last thing we say. Could not be. We could do a double episode here. So what? And there was a stat about Brexit and the amount of people that voted. Was it like 52% voted for it and 48% against it? It's quite a close vote.
Yeah.
And then was it some? And I want to say it's something like a day or a week later, and the same poll was taken again, and the vote was reversed.
Yeah.
So basically, 52% voted for Brexit, 48% against.
Yeah.
The same poll was taken like a week later or 2 weeks later, whatever it was, and the result was completely flipped, which led me to believe it wasn't anything to do whatsoever with the policy.
Yeah.
It's to do with the person.
Yeah.
And it was to do with who was the figurehead. And actually, and I think Brexit was a byproduct of, in my opinion, the immigration issue. What? So people were very angry with the immigration issue. So what people voted for was they voted against Labour or Tory or whatever. They voted against the government, not because of Brexit, but because of immigration. Now Brexit just happened to be a byproduct, and then when the new government comes in, and they were like, "Oh, so what do you think about Brexit?" Yeah, I hate it. Yeah. Well, why did you vote for it then? Well, I didn't really agree with what they said on immigration. So I think everything is intertwined. And
you have Farage. You know what I mean? Farage was one of the poster boys for the Yes movement.
You
know what I mean?
Yes, he was.
You know, we know his policies on immigration. So you know, and
he's raising his head again.
Yeah, exactly. That's why we need to be losing it. That's it. Yeah,
was it beer or milkshake? Was it milk? Oh, it's because one of the guys I worked with. Oh, he's had a beer thrown out. I said, what a fucking waste of a beer that is. You know what I mean?
This is the second time it's happened to me. 5 years ago, it happened in Newcastle.
Right. Oh, okay.
Did it as well. So, but then again, one question before we leave as well. Yeah. How do we trust? Do we really trust the stats and the polls?
No, do we fuck?
No, we don't. We don't.
Right. And that's the bottom line.
No,
do we bother? How can you?
I don't trust.
How can you?
Anything, any
See,
politics.
when they say all these stats and all that, like, look,
it's bollocks.
It's bollocks. It's all bollocks.
It's all bollocks.
When in COVID, they give you these numbers of deaths and all that, right? if you look at the deaths right now, yeah, it'll be way less, way more
Yeah.
than what it was before. In the COVID, you know that?
Look, there's lies, damn lies, and statistics, as Mark Twain once famously said. So you can't if and it go. What was the episode we did where can't for life remember. And they turned around and said, if you can't trust the politicians, how do you trust the information that the politicians are giving you? Or vice versa.
Yeah.
If you can't trust the information, how do you trust the politicians that are giving you the information? And I can't for life remember which episode it was, but we were like, actually that makes sense. Because if you don't trust Boris, or you don't trust Sunak, or you don't trust Keir Starmer, whoever it may be,
Just for the record,
how do you trust the information? So if he says, "Oh well, this and this and this and this," well, if you don't trust him, you're therefore by the very nature that you can't trust the information that he's giving you.
Yeah. So you have to be doing.
So yes, you fucked with you, fucked with them. So therefore, you look at and again it goes back to that propaganda. So how much do you believe in the information that you're given? Well, if you don't trust in the people that are giving you the information, how do you trust the information in the first place? It's a flat earther.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's a flat earther.
I'd have left that out.
The flat earther went, look, everybody says it's a globe, and you only believe it's a globe because it's shown on news, and it's shown on this.
On the maps.
On maps. Yeah. But if you don't trust the people that are doing the maps, how do you know it's blah 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 blah? And no, I didn't believe it. I was not, but I've listened to it back and it was full of crock of shit.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, all flat earthers, blah blah blah. But the point is a valid one. Is if you don't believe the people that are giving you the information, A, how do you trust the person, and B, how do you trust the information?
It goes with the fact of the history in it. It's his story, so it's the victor's story that you're going to believe more than.
Of course,
well, that's true. It's only ever told from one perspective.
Of course, it is. Yeah,
it is.
Never.
So we're nearly at the 90-minute mark.
Wow, yeah, that's a long episode. Yeah.
So I'll let you leave. I'll let you leave on one final thing that you want people to take away. I'll give you mine first, so that it's not the last one. But I do think this time is the opportunity to hold the Conservatives' feet to the flames, and the purpose of doing that, more important than anything else, and my absolute hatred for the fucking Tories, is if we do that and you send them that message when Labour do get in. You're sending them a message that they cannot fuck around. No. We will hold you to account for what you do, and let's continue to do that.
Well, the only thing that you're going to tell them is that you can fuck around for 14 years, do whatever you want.
Right now.
Make your money, whatever you can in 14 years, and then you can go.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what they've done, but we need to hold them to account for it. And Labour need to know when they get in, if they get in, whichever you believe, they will be held to account for what they do in the next 5, 10, 15 years.
Will they then?
They have to be. They have to be. And it's on us. It's on us to do it.
But when you got a nation of people who are relaxed, what are you going to
do? My final thought on this is, people have a vote, and I think people need to spend that vote. And whether you believe A or B or C or D, Tory, Labour, Lib Dem, Green, Independent, whoever it may be, I think if you have the opportunity to vote, I think you should vote, because I think if you don't vote, then that's a win for the norm, whatever that may be. So I would absolutely actively encourage everybody to go out and vote and take the time to vote. Go to local polling stations, and you know what? I'm going to be a bit facetious now. If actually you genuinely don't know who to vote for, just write "Vote Tallboy Radio," because you know what, it spoils the paper. And you know what, is it the worst thing? No. Is it the best thing? No. But it does get our name out there.
We wouldn't do any worse than the Tories. No. Go on, Biggie, sound it off for us.
Well, my thought on this is like, do you know what? Vote whatever you want to vote, because it will go nice with your, for your player school system. You want good credit, just work the system. That's all you need to do. That's the only thing you need. Just work the system. Whoever is going to be in it, work the system. I hope it works into your favor, and then just go buy your business, really and truly. That's the only thing that you can do, because I have no faith in any of these politicians at all. Because I know that there's no politician or any government that really works for their people. If there's a country that does that, please let me know. I'll move there right now.
We'll all be there tomorrow.
We'll be there tomorrow.
We will.
Yeah.
We will.
And that's that.
And with that, we will see you next week when we'll be talking about something arguably less contentious.
Yeah.